So this is topic number 3 in our series on the 5 C's of communication. And constraint in itself is a strange word. It's not something we think about consciously all the time. And it's definitely a part of our world in many aspects, but more so in the past year as a result of COVID-19 and the lockdown experience. But constraint plays a role in communication, a very important role. And today I have a guest with me, Lorraine Penduka, and she has graciously accepted the invitation to talk about this interesting topic. And we are going to explore the positives and negatives regarding constraint within communication, whether at work or family life, or even internally in your own internal communication process. I'd like to introduce my guest to you today, Lorraine Penduka. How are you, Lorraine?
I'm fine, thanks, Karine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. It's lovely to see you. And I want to introduce you as the businesswoman that you are. Lorraine lives in Pretoria. She is an entrepreneur, and she's also a member of the Female Entrepreneur Collective. Lorraine and I have known each other for 3 going on 4 years in Toastmasters. We have been able to spend a lot of time together, getting to know each other and building relationships. Lorraine has allowed me to explore more about the differences between extroverts and introverts in terms of communication. And that in itself has been a stimulating aspect of our relationship, because Lorraine, I've learned so much from you. You also silently in the background have developed 2 businesses. The one is Kitso Recruitment and the other is Vuyiswa Brown Creations. Maybe we should kick off and start with a simple definition. Would you like to take us into that definition?
Oh, yes, definitely. So when we hear the word constraint, we think of all the possible negative things, maybe having to force you to do something, So constraint is really, it's got negative connotations, but there are some benefits to exercising some constraint in your life.
Our definition, plain and simple, in terms of constraint is limitation, restriction, either self-imposed, right, or it could be forced on us, right? Yes. And in lockdown, as a result of what the world has gone through, we understand exactly what that means.
That is true.
Let's have a look at some of the positives. And what I'd like to highlight is, once you start to reflect deeper and explore the positives that there are of being constrained in some way when it comes to communication, then we see that it allows us to become more creative in finding solutions when we are under constraint. What does that mean? What does that mean to you as a person when I say to you, you have to find creative solutions when you are in a position of being constrained in terms of your communication? Immediately, the picture that comes to mind for me is, I'm not lying on my couch in a relaxed way, chatting with my best friend on the other couch, and both of us reading a book and having an open conversation whenever we feel like it every now and then. That is not a constrained environment. But within a work environment, there are certain rules of etiquette that we have to adhere to, and also we have to tend and nurture relationships, and in that there are positives of constraint. How do you feel about that?
I think constraint in a work environment or even at home, the beauty of constraint is that it gives you the opportunity to pause and to process what you're going to say, how you're going to communicate to people. that becomes very important because you are aware of people's boundaries and limits, and you are able to communicate in such a respectful manner. So constraint, when you exercise that constraint in yourself, you are now putting other people first.
Right.
What their, how you would want to be addressed. Let me put it that way. So when you exercise that constraint, I like it because it gives me the opportunity to say, hey, wait, stop. Process the information that just came in. Is it positive information? Is it information that's beneficial to me as an individual? Am I going to accept this information before I react to it emotionally?
Right.
A lot of people, when someone says something they don't like, the immediate reaction is, I'm going to attack, or I'm going to defend myself. And when we are communicating, it's an open discussion. They shouldn't be bazookas that are brought out when we are trying to have a discussion. We should be able to amicably talk and discuss, even though we disagree. So when you exercise that constraint, you're saying, okay, I respect your boundaries. I respect you as an individual, and I'm just going to hold back my hard words that I was going to throw at you, and actually speak to you as a human being. So I like constraint in that. I think that's the positive of constraint that I see.
Absolutely. I like what you've just said, and it brought to mind a specific example. In the broader sense of communication, the difference in temperament also highlights the extrovert's mindset and pace, and the introvert's mindset and pace. And you and I are opposites. And we have been able to go into deep conversations, and in that, not necessarily we didn't have conflict, but I believe that unconsciously we were practicing constraints in respecting each other's boundaries. And I want to use an example. If I, as an extrovert, bring up a subject that you, as an introvert, are not completely comfortable with, or it is a conflicting issue between us, not an argument, just a conflict of interest, perhaps, then what would happen is I would read in your body language and in your going into the quiet space that I need to slow down, and I'm not going to get the response that I want from you right now. I'm not going to get it right now. I have to wait and carry on. We carry on with conversation about something else, and later today or tomorrow or maybe the next day, you are going to have had enough time to reflect on those statements that I made, and then you will be comfortable to come back into that conversation, into that topic, and really give me a wonderful feedback on your thoughts, on your opinion, and bring a lot of value into the conversation.
That is true. As introverts, we need that time to internalize what has just been said to us, and we hate feeling under pressure. Like, give me a response right now. You know, you are heightened, you are hyped, and you're giving me all this information. And I'm saying, hey, wait. I'm listening. I'm taking in what you're saying, but I don't have an immediate response. And it's up to me. I've learned that, okay, I encounter a lot of emotional people. And I always say I'm a rational thinker. If you come with me with emotional chaos and you want me to be able to join you and be able to give you the answers that you need at that level, I won't be able to. I'll try and bring you to my level and say, okay, let's rationalize it. Let's think about this
Yes.
without sounding condescending on you, like, I don't understand why you're being so emotional, but that's the temperament. And I think that understanding the temperament is one of the key things that I learned from you, that, oh, okay, when you begin to understand how people function,
Right.
then, you don't look like these are crazy people. They become, okay, this is the normal person and this is how their makeup is. And
Right.
they understand that, okay, you don't come hyped to me.
Right.
You just come, in a calm manner and tell me what happened. And
Right.
then I'll be able to respond when the time is right. But it's not always immediate.
Yes, excellent. Well, isn't that exactly the where constraint comes in? And what about the extrovert's ability to understand all of this, and the introvert's ability to understand? And you've just explained how you've learned to understand that there's a difference in pace between people.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it also touches on whether one is task orientated or people orientated. And coming from your version now has indicated how an introvert would be coming from people orientation, mindset, approach,
Mm-hmm.
and an extrovert in general comes from a task orientated position. So the approach is, here's a problem, let's talk about it. It's not necessarily between us, it's in society, or it's politics, or it's whatever. It's a heated subject. It's a project that needs to be finished within the next 2 weeks. Let's sort it all out today. Let's strategize, let's plan, let's go. I want to go to bed tonight and I want to know exactly what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. And being a task-orientated person, the sensitivity isn't, and the awareness isn't necessarily there. So what's important is that an extroverted temperament, which in terms of the tall trees profiles would be rose bushes and palm trees, and sometimes a combination of or many times actually a combination of those two, which are powerfully forced people. They have to learn the awareness and emotional intelligence that comes with the territory of being with other people and working with other people in a team. And the one important thing that we are highlighting today is the positive of constraint. And what does that look like? From my side as an extrovert, it looks like this. You've described the other side, the introvert side. So for me, it's reading the signs, reading the body language, seeing that the person is literally, it's as if their little meter is going, it's going down. I have to slow down. I have to stop giving all those bullet points. I've said enough. Now I have to respect, constrain myself, constrain my thoughts, constrain my approach, and slow down and accept that I've given enough to this intelligent, slower paced person who now needs to go and process all of this. And I must remember that Rome was not built in a day. And as a team, what do? We work together and make room and space for everyone's processing time. Because then every coach in a train, if I can use that visual imagery, the train has different coaches. One coach is filled with gold, the next coach is filled with silver, the next coach is filled with coal, the next one with diamonds. And together, this train with the locomotive in the front needs to get to its destination. You can't just produce the coal and the diamonds and the gold and the silver at the same instance. They need to they need to come together and then to be hooked up, and eventually your project is going and this train is going to reach its destination. But if the locomotive was just to charge along and say, hey, coaches, I've given you all the bullet points. We are now leaving. Choo-choo! And there goes there goes the driver. That's not going to work, right?
No.
So coming from that point of view, I think we've just made a very clear distinction between pace, slower and faster, practicing constraints so that we can respect each other's pace, and goal orientation and people orientation, practicing constraint to respect that there is that difference, and we can achieve more if we allow some limitations, or not limitations, I think, in that sense, but restrictions. So we've now actually covered point 1, 2, and 3. We've touched on all of those. Let's talk about 4, 5, and 6, Lorraine. Take us through some issues about our environment due to lockdown that was limited.
This was a very interesting encounter, I think, for a lot of people who had to spend time at home with their family members, with their partners, and you never knew what it was like to spend a whole, not just a whole day, a whole week, a whole month with them. And I think it was a journey of discovery from a lot of people, because now your communication styles are coming, the conflict is coming, you are in my space is coming, I need freedom. All of these things were happening, and we needed to be able to communicate with one another and say, okay, right now, I like to say, you get the morning people who are chirpy, excited, and everything in the morning. They want the conversations in the morning. And then you get the night riders that I call the night riders. They wake up a bit later, like 10, 11. That's when they start to actually come to life. And now you have people like that in one family. So you want one who wants attention in the morning, another one who wants attention later on in the day, and you still have to live with one another and not, overlap into each other's boundaries. Like, please don't talk to me in the morning. Right. My young sister will be like, don't talk to me. She'll leave me a note on my handbag and tell me, don't wake me up. Bubbly personality in the morning, would have all these things that I wanted to tell her in the morning. So I needed to exercise now constraint and say, okay, she's not a morning person. I just have to respect that she needs to sleep and she needs to wake up, in a natural manner. And then we can have those discussions. So we had a time frame maybe from the afternoon to the early evenings, because I'd shut down in the evenings. I didn't want any conversation. So we had that little window for us to be able to effectively communicate. So that exercising of constraint, even she had to learn that, okay, after a certain period of time in the evening, don't talk serious matters with her. Yes. Don't ask her for anything. She won't remember. In the morning, it'll kick in and say, what were you asking me about last night? I've kicked in, but she has kicked out. So exercising constraint is being able to now learn how the other people functions. And during the lockdown, I think that was one of the key things. It was very difficult because now there's conflict and we need to be able to resolve it without being angry and emotional towards each other, because now you're in lockdown. A month of being indoors together was a very long time for people to learn about each other and to learn their different communication styles. And even in the workspace, I like the workspace because, you know, you had that freedom. You could call
Right.
over to your friend at the other side of the desk and
Yes.
chit chat about life, and maybe a thought comes to mind and you ask them for their opinion. There was that genuine conversations that would go on. There was the different environment. There was work. Then you go home and the work go home.
Yes.
Now you're stuck at home, and my only interaction with you is it's like now over video. And
Right. Right.
we're not going to spend the whole day on the video. We have to work. Now you're stuck with your own thoughts, and now you have to think a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and you have conversations with yourself. But if you allow those thoughts to run away with you and not exercise constraint even in your thinking, you'll find
Right.
that you'll start thinking yourself into a depression. So a lot of people are thinking, okay, the world is ending. Or what if I get the virus? What's going to happen to me?
Mm.
Those thoughts, you need to be able to exercise constraint and say, okay, these are my boundaries when it comes to thinking. I won't allow myself to go to the negative thinking side. I will keep it here where it's positive, and I'm going to look for the best outcome in any solution whatsoever. So it gave us an opportunity to reflect on ourselves as individuals. You had time to really look at yourself and say, wow, is this me? Am I happy with me? Am
Yes.
I with with my thoughts? Am I happy with my life? A lot
Yes.
of people don't ask themselves those kind of questions. And the lockdown forced us to face ourselves, to face our worst fears and say, okay, I can live with myself being this individual. I need to fix certain areas of my life. I
Mm-hmm.
need to fix certain relationships. I need to learn how to speak better to
Mm-hmm.
people or develop my relationships in such a better way. So I think the lockdown was a test of our characters, a big test, and a big test for our communication skills. If you thought you could communicate being locked with your whole family
Oh, yes, absolutely.
for a month,
No,
will
absolutely.
really teach you how to communicate.
Definitely. I think everyone can agree with that. And I think we've experienced some shocks in terms of character. And we are going to talk about some of the negatives straight after. You've made some important comments here because you mentioned opportunity, and opportunity to learn from our mistakes is a gift, right? What we received in lockdown is a mirror that was fleeting in the past, you know, in your family environment or even alone with yourself. You would see the mirror, you would see how you react, hear how you respond, be aware of how you think, but it would be fleeting because you're going out in a minute again and you're going to be with people that you work with again, or you're going out to a social event. But now, for 24 hours, for 7 days a week, and long months, we had this mirror coming up all the time. We thought we had it covered. You know, it just came up and it said, hey, I'm still here. You still respond the wrong way or react instead of responding. And then we have to work on that. So we had to go through a process of facing ourselves anew, as you said, and then what do we do about it? So even in our dealing with other people, how do we now grow when we've had that really horribly gone wrong conversation over the phone with a family member where we know that the relationship is terse and we could manage it, but now with lockdown there are other pressures. People are emotional, people are worried, there's anxiety issues, there are suicidal feelings, etc. Real issues like losing your home, losing your car, losing your job, number one. So a lot of pressure came onto every individual in terms of the character of their communication style. And I feel that a mirror that was held up is an opportunity for us to reflect on our style, and then we need a tool to work on our flaws. Why would we want to do that? Not because we're going to be in lockdown forever, but because we want to take some growth and learning out of this journey and invest it in ourselves so that the future character that we have is stronger. Right. Lorraine and I have just discussed more of a humorous example of a mirror. And you can decide for yourself, looking in the mirror after lockdown, what image you need to paint on the right-hand side. If you're not happy with that image that you know you have to own up to, don't worry, because there's always hope. We can grow. We are not stuck in a state of frozen identity. And I think that is what is so encouraging, is that we can, as humans, grow when we become aware of where our faults lie, or not necessarily faults or weaknesses, but simply areas of ourselves and in terms of communication where we need to grow. And we can do that. Our growth starts in the mind, and as we change our thoughts, we then see a different outcome in our decision making, which leads to new actions, and from that new habits are formed. How could we measure growth over time without knowing where we were in the beginning? This is the measurement tool that Tall Trees Leadership Profile is for each of us. And we can use it to measure not only where we are right now, but where we want to grow to, and then use it as a growth tool to achieve the growth in character that we want. Please refer to session 1 for more information about this wonderful tool. To be positive, we've kept the negatives short. Let's bash them in three points, and I'd love for you to expand on that for us, Lorraine. The negatives in communication, in terms of communication and constraint.
You are looking for the worst case scenario with people. You're looking for the worst case answer that a person is going to give you. That is your expectation. So you just throw out those constraints and be like, no, I know exactly what this person is going to say. And you are immediately on the defense. You immediately want to attack that person. You're not going to say, okay, wait, let me pause and think about it. I'm going to react, and I'm going to speak my mind, and they'll know exactly how I feel. So when you have that negative expectation, you already have a predetermined notion of the outcome of it before it even happens. And that's when an assumption comes into place. You are assuming that this is how that person is going to react. You haven't given them the opportunity to react in the way that they wanted to. Yes. So you have to have that awareness of what's going on in your mind. You have to have that awareness to say, hang on, how do I know that that person is going to react that way? There is no clear answer. We may think we know people, but that day could be a different day, and they could react in a different way. They were like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll let it slide. Maybe they won't take offense, especially if it's your fault. If you're in fault and you are ready to defend yourself because you're trying to justify why you did or said what you said, your communication is now targeted at, I have to present a best picture on my side, that it was not my fault, and I'm the innocent party and victim in all of this. And the other thing that also comes with the negativity with not exercising constraints is that we allow our emotions to take over. You get to emotionalize things instead
Yeah.
of rationalizing things. You are immediately reacting, and in anger, you end up speaking the wrong things. You end up hurting people, and we can't take back our words. That's the reality. And if you don't exercise constraint, that's what's going to happen. You're going to allow your emotions to do the talking instead of your mind doing the talking. Because we have to analyze facts. Okay, what this person has just said, is it valuable to me? Am I going to accept it? Is it just fact? Is it truth? And what am I going to do with this information? Then after that, you can react and say, you know what, I disagree. Or, you know what, I agree with you. But first, there has to be that constraint that I will not over emotionalize the issue. I'm going to rationally approach the issue. But without constraint, you are just going to fire that gun at everybody, and you will hit anything and anyone with no remorse. And that for me is just really bad if the constraint is not exercising that. So those are the negative things that I find in terms of communication, and you don't exercise that constraint.
Yes, excellent. I see you carry the bazooka with you everywhere in these examples.
Yes. I watch a lot of action movies.
The action girl. Yeah, powerful image, because we know the power of the destructive power that that guns have. And we think of war in our country, and we think of war in the world. And war can happen in communication, right? Except that
Yes.
it doesn't get you to the ICU, get you to a place of brokenness inside. But fortunately, relationships can be restored by practicing good communication, and also by forgiveness, being aware of our own faults. And it takes time to become aware of mistakes that we make. It's not, we can't just always see it, right? What you've also pointed out to us now is that we can limit ourselves by having a negative mindset and approaching communication and relationships with a lack of positivity and a negative mindset, and not being aware of it. So what I'd like to just highlight before we conclude is that one of the tools which I'm very passionate about is helping us to improve our communication. I see we have a major spelling error here on our screen. So let's change that sentence to, there are tools to improve communication. And we can do that with a TTLP, short for Tall Trees Leadership Profile. And that has nothing to do with your leadership style. There are enough quizzes and tests and profiles for leadership style. But in terms of leadership profile, it's about personal leadership. How do I lead myself? What makes me freeze up? It's something about other people that makes me freeze up. So that even comes out in your profile. How do I make other people freeze up? Probably when I don't practice constraint. And you can actually see that in your profile. And what's amazing about this is that you receive 3 profiles summarized into one, which gives you an overall signature. And it's not set in stone. It's not about putting you in a box. It's about actually seeing how across 4 different profiles, percentage-wise, how do I fall into each of these or some of them? And then I can see the mix I have in myself. I'm not in a box. And then I can start to explore my personal leadership style and profile, and find tools to improve my communication the growth points that are reflected in my profile I can work with. There's a growth plan, which is a self-coaching plan within the profile. And it is a comprehensive report of 26 pages that an individual receives. This is a coaching tool, an HR recruitment tool, and an excellent tool for performance review. It's not a psychometric test, but it is a good reflection of how a person approaches social interaction, which is teamwork. How a person approaches work, tasks, goals, their style, inherent to themselves, and then their life view. Life view touches on mindset. And we can't hide it. You know, when it comes out in a profile, we can rationalize, but we can't really hide the way we think. It can be tested. And when it is tested, the good news is that you can see, oh man, I'm just so strong on these points. You know, isn't that wonderful? This is what I contribute to society and to my environment and to myself. But I can also see, okay, here are 1 or 2 points that I'm not so strong in. I know someone else is very strong in that, but I'm not strong in this, but I can work on it. And then the tools are there for you to work on that. So I would suggest that if you've had a good mirror experience throughout lockdown in this last year, that you get a TTLP for yourself. Right? Would you like to take us through the conclusion?
Constraint is essential for good communication. It is what we need to better understand and better deal with people. It gives us the opportunity to respect people's boundaries and speak to them in a respectful manner. It'll give you the opportunity to process, to think about things, to take it apart and put it back together in your mind before you react, before you say something back. Yeah. And just to add on to that as well, where a lot of miscommunication happens is on our social media platforms, in our chats, where we misinterpret what's being said, or we feel that we can say anything on chat. But even on chat, we need to exercise some constraint and some emotional intelligence. So it's an essential part of our communication, and I encourage everyone to make sure that they take it to heart. They are conscious of it. They're deliberate in exercising it in their communication style.
Thank you, Lorraine. That is an awesome conclusion. I so appreciate the way that you make it easy for us to understand both the positives and the negatives of constraint. And I feel that this experience that I've had personally, I'm sure you will agree, has in fact strengthened me for the future. I just want to thank you so much for your time today with us and for bringing your wisdom and that special touch that you have as an introvert and bringing your own mindset onto the platform and helping us to view this strange topic of constraint in a better way and finding some keys that we can use.
Thank you for having me.